Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of Jubilee, should be on his way. Ama kumeendaje? Ako within, anakuja. Okay. So he'll come here, we'll talk about these talks. And as he gets here, then we can just do the run-up to this. Azimio calls another meeting today amid split over Ruto dialogue invite. Okay? So we know what happened. Last week, Tuesday, President William Ruto is joined by leaders of political parties in the country at KICC to sign into law the IEBC bill, amendment bill. And this was the first of the several products of the NADCO, the National Dialogue Committee, that was now being implemented as law, right? In that conversation, they retreated to a room, and the leaders of those parties said to have actually come up with something. Jeremiah Kioni was not in that meeting, though. So the ones who were there, Raila, Kalonzo was there, Maendeleo Chap was there, Ford Kenya was there, Amani National Congress. Has it dissolved yet? Am I still
Who knows?
Dissolving?
I thought it was, okay, it's dissolving. The water is on the salt.
Yeah.
It's going through the drain.
Yeah, PA was there, and other parties were there. And then they retreated to a meeting and they decided, you know what? Hawa watoto wameleta shida.
Where? Tuko wapi?
Hawa watoto wanaleta shida. Hawa watoto watatumaliza bwana. How don't we do this? Why don't we talk? Let's have a conversation on, okay, what's the best thing then to guide this country out of this, what we find to be turmoil. And they said, let's have a multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral, multi-involving, broad-based conversation. Unataka yuko watu wangapi? Boma zinaweza shika watu wangapi?
Kama 150 hivi.
Acha tuweke watu 150, si ndio? Sawa.
No, maybe more, but 150 sounds good for Monday morning. Yeah.
So next week, Monday, that is now today, watu wakutane Bomas,
of Kenya.
we talk.
Yeah.
And so that we listen to the youth, let's give them 50 slots. Okay. A third of those ninis equal youth. Hasa wengine 100, wewe Raila tuweke watu wetu, nini wazee, wamama, I mean professional organizations,
religious organizations,
religious, you know, nimeongelesha nini wakuje pia, that. Okay? Gen Z heard that. They're like, what do you mean?
Who are you talking to?
Pana. People who are not in this meeting, the leader of Jubilee, Secretary General of Jubilee, we know the party leader of Jubilee. Unajua hajalipa mwaka mzima, hajapewa pesa ya mafuta, hajapewa, so he could not even come to KICC. Right?
Fair.
Hana fair. The party leader of Jubilee hana fair. Mwaka mzima bwana hajamenyima pesa. So he didn't come. Secretary General of Jubilee did not come. The leader of DAP-K did not come to that meeting. The leader of NAC Kenya did not come to that meeting. They were tweeting from where they were. Hakuna siku. Hakuna ketu. We are not burning.
Not bonging.
They were tweeting and saying they are not part of this. Those are Azimio
Das.
Now, last week, the deputy party leader, one of the two deputy party leaders of ODM, Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, was bereaved. And there was a funeral. And people went there. Among them, Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, and others. And after that funeral, that night, people sat down and they were like, wait, sasa, hawa vijana wataki kusikia mambo ya dialogue.
Wanatakaje sasa?
Haya, Martha Karua huko sijui ana Twitter anasema nini? Ndio huyo Eugene anasema nini? So tufanye nini? Kalonzo pia ameanza kuruka history. So they sat and apparently they had a meeting, and the meeting was convened by the principals who had attended the burial of Oparanya's brother. It also brought together some governors, senators, and MPs. The principals agreed to hold another meeting in Nairobi today to take a common stand. Because the stand that they were trying to take on that day in that meeting in Western did not stand.
Kustand?
Stand ilikataa kustand. Now today there's supposed to be another meeting again of the leadership of Azimio. Azimio seems not reading from the same script. ODM has already sat in the top leadership of ODM and said, us, we support a conversation. Dialogue is important. Where we are at, we have seen the fruits of dialogue in many instances such as this one. And we believe that dialogue is the way to go. The leadership of Wiper met and said, dialogue.
Where are you dialogue?
No, we're not dialoguing, no bonging.
Dialogue, where art thou, dialogue?
That is it. That is it.
You know, that dialogue is useful, in my opinion, without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, dialogue is of utmost importance. But dialogue becomes a little iffy depending on who initiates the dialogue and what it is the initiators of the dialogue wish to be the central discussion on this particular dialogue. You see, this dialogue comes against a backdrop of a dialogue that has been taking place from the 25th. Protests are dialogue, in case you didn't know. Because when people go from place to place saying what they want to say, they are communicating with you because you are there and they are addressing specific issues and specific individuals. So really, if you then say you wish to have a further, because now it's not a dialogue, a further dialogue, and you want it structured in such a manner, the question one asks is this dialogue in tandem with the other dialogue we've been seeing? And have the people who initiate that initial dialogue, are they in agreement with you? Or are you starting your own dialogue?
Or are you talking to yourself?
Which is parallel to the one which the other fellows were having. Yes. Because remember, Sifuna put it very well here. He said, he belongs to a party. He has a leader. But it's against a backdrop of groups of individuals who say they are partyless and they are leaderless. That is not entirely true. But that is what they say. So here we have two groups of people, each of them having dialogue. One wants to start a dialogue, one is already having a dialogue.
You want to start? We've been here for a minute.
They have been having this dialogue. They've been
dialoguing.
Yes, and anyone who understands how social media works, online communication, they dialogue every single day. The conversation hasn't stopped, but you want to start a new one. So you need to explain so that we understand. Yes,
what is this dialogue?
Conversations are good. They're very good. They've gotten out of some very tricky situation in this country. But this one that you're proposing, explain further, please.
So one of the leaders of Azimio has joined us, Secretary General Jubilee Party, Jeremiah Kioni. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Karibu sana.
Apology for stepping in late.
Somebody has commented there. Kioni is always late.
What you call?
Zach, yes, I hope he won't lose his way again.
Surely by now you must know where standard.
Kioni Kenya imechange bwana.
Yeah.
People keep records.
You have to wake up early. Internet never forgets.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
But karibu.
Asante na shukuru.
Good to have you here. City will give you the day's proverb.
I will. Proverbs for the whole of this week are from the Republic of Cape Verde. Cape Verde. When carrying an elephant's flesh on one's head, one should not look for crickets underground.
When carrying an elephant's flesh on the head, one should not look for crickets underground.
One is that it is very heavy. Two is that it has a lot of value. And you need to concentrate on what you are doing. Stop listening to noises that are coming from
underground.
Remain focused.
Stay focused.
Yeah.
Is there any relation to what's happening in the country at present?
Now you have to stop listening to crickets and focus on what the Gen Z are saying.
The Gen Z are the elephant. What are the Gen Z saying? What do you hear, you, Kioni?
That we gave ourselves a constitution back in 2010 and we have failed to live by it.
So?
Live by it. Yes, and if you can't, give way.
River should come back to its cause.
Yeah, give way. And there are no shortcuts.
Okay.
No panel beating.
Okay. So
Yes.
number one, you were not at KICC last week.
Yes.
Why? Did you receive the invitation from State House?
No, but I received invitation through others who had been given that mandate.
Okay.
and I through the channels that are used to communicate such invites, and I thought that all that one will be doing is to, you see, I thought that people are looking for sanitization. And for that reason, I chose not to go. Yes.
How exactly were they looking for sanitization? What was being sanitized?
For the last, I think now, almost a month, 2 months heading, we have had the Gen Z talking about the failure to be accountable. We have had opportunity to do things the way they should have been done, but we never did them. We, for example, if I was just to talk about that document called the NADICO report, one is that Kenyans were not fully behind the NADICO reports. They didn't quite okay, but we still went ahead, sat there for about 3 months, more than 3 months, came up with a document that again had a lot of issues with people. It required to be implemented one way or another. And there were some things that were there. Kenyans wanted us to discuss the cost of living. We didn't get to discuss the cost of living because those we were dialoguing with said it is their responsibility. We then said that there are pieces of legislation that may need to be passed, or that needs to be passed for us to, try and improve the way we've been managing things. And all of them were listed starting with IEBC, and there are about 9 of them. And there was clear, and we can see reasons for people dilly-dallying. And those who are in government did not show goodwill. If they really wanted to implement the NADOC report, it would have been done last year, within the months of maybe October, November, December. But again, Parliament went on recess. We are here without IBC. We are through now. This is the month of July. I don't see us having IBC even in the month of August. Sometimes maybe we may even go into September. And those are the things that have been, and it is not because it's deliberate. These things are being delayed deliberately, so that we can find ourselves with no time to even implement or some of the changes that needed to have been done in the constitution. So it is a deliberate thing. The dialoguing was to slow us down. They succeeded in slowing us down. The implementing of the dialogue again has been delayed. So when you again called to go and witness the signing of the IBC Act, it was really again to be seen there. So another narrative is developed again. Kenyans are talking of issues that are not of any value. And again, since 1963, all acts of parliament have been signed in State House. So why bring this one to KICC? I have not seen one signed being witnessed by the opposition people.
So you would be in agreement then that at this juncture, the way things are going, that dialogue actually doesn't work, and that Gen Z, for example, in the protests, in what is being asked for moving forward, it's not about talking. Talk shops have been held for I don't know how many years, has never yielded anything. So would you be in agreement now that this is not the time for dialogue, but that certain things just need to be done?
This constitution was produced through a dialogue process. A dialogue that gave birth to negotiations. But it also tried in many ways than one to put a stop to those kind of, not for this purpose, but to put a stop to what used to be the way of running this country before, with commissions, inquiries, those dialoguing, because it's a way of the executive slowing down things and failing to do what Kenyans want, but they keep you in boardrooms over time as they again buy time and continue doing what they have always done. So, and I think it is a kind of dialogue that is also being rejected too, or floundered by many, because you cannot see any goodwill. We didn't see it before. Again, remember the dismissive attitude. that was there before from the beginning. Even after elections, there was always that dismissive attitude that you do not need to listen to any other person. So all of a sudden, why would you get so preoccupied with the dialoguing again?
So you don't think it works?
Not, it has worked in the past. You see, dialoguing is not a bad thing, but it is not a useful thing for us as a country today.
Situation
where we are today, there is no dialoguing that
dialogue is not going to work.
It is not going to work. I mean, who are we dialoguing with? We are dialoguing with who are you dialoguing with? Who is it sitting on the other side of the dialogue? That is one thing that you need to ask. If you are talking about dialoguing with William, Gen Z have said, sijui wanasema tuaguke nayo.
Kitu kama hiyo.
Tuaguke nayo, aguka nayo. And when they say aguka nayo, ni kuisha maneno. Haina maneno midway. I was saying this and I want to repeat. When they talked about the finance bill, there were those of us, not those of us, there were those in government who were still left hanged by thinking that it was meant amendment.
Yep.
And it was too late for them. By the time they were waking up to the reality that it is reject totally. I see the same scenario now. These people have said, reject. William Ruto must go. Ruto must go. That's the hashtag. They were trying to criminalize that saying William Ruto must go is a criminal statement. But I think we are missing it. When you say Ruto must go, it's actually the executive must go. So when you say again, come with dialogue, you are dialoguing with who? Gen Z have gone beyond that point. And it is also very tricky on any of us, and especially those of us who have been in the leadership of political institutions there before, to try and take over or come to the front of Gen Z. If you ask me, I think they know what they want. They know where they are going. Certainly, I'm sure they do not want to do it at the exclusion of everybody else, but it is not right for you to try and go pale bele kwao. Ni fadhali wasaidie waendelee kufanya yale ambayo. Remember, we tried this maandamano thing as Azimio, and we achieved what
NADCO.
we achieved. Eventually, we achieved NADCO. And NADCO is almost becoming a nothing. You know, it's one act. Only one has been done since we started talking. IEBC. And it is not an IEBC because we have seen the commissioners in office. And what are we saying? We are now trying to reconstitute IEBC that was collapsed by Ruto himself because he wanted to bring new commissioners who can serve his own interest. We sanitized that act. We have 4 commissioners whom he forced out of office out there. They have never been compensated. We are now in the process of trying to get new commissioners. It is going to take us, I can tell you, even September we'll still be here talking about commissioners. And the issue is, he collapsed IBC because he wanted to get commissioners who can help him win 2027. We have now agreed, and of course a bit of haggling here and there, the way we are going to pick commissioners. We still have not agreed on the panel today. And that is where Gen Z should start. The panel, those 9 panelists, in my opinion, they should be vetted by Gen Z. Let them vet. Because how are they shared out?
Yeah.
2 to Azimio, 2 to KK, 2 to Public Service Commission, or 1 to Public Service Commission. We have the Religious Council has another set. We have the Royal Society has another set. And what happens behind the scenes? The powers that be, or those who are in office, they then go behind all those institutions and then vet the person you are bringing on board. So that at the end of the day, almost 7 out of the 9 are leaning towards the executive. So there's nothing that we still are going to allow Ruto to do what he ever wanted to do when he sent the commissioners home.
Unless the public
Unless
participates.
Gen Z comes and says, fine, we are where we are, this panel must be one for Kenyans, not for Ruto, not for Raila, not for Kioni. It is going to be for Kenyans. And you vet every person who is there by checking our backgrounds.
Kioni, let's take
And
a
I
break.
believe they should do the same for the commissioners, so that we have a Gen Z IEBC, but not a Ruto IEBC or any other person for that matter.
So we see that Azimio is split on the way to go. ODM has issued a statement. We've seen the ODM party leader saying, let's go for dialogue. We've seen some leaders, senior leaders in ODM saying maybe dialogue is the way to go. Among them, Senator Oburu Oginga and others. Wiper has said no to dialogue. Where is Jubilee?
Not dialogue.
Why?
See, this constitution, you remember Buddy's words that you have replayed over and over again. William Ruto has given us a cabinet that is over 60% that's not useful to Kenyans. And they said he has given us a skunk, let's throw it back to him. He knows it is not useful. So why waste our time trying to vet it? If William had been keen to pay attention to chapter 6 of the Constitution, all those people who were appointed, virtually all of them, who were appointed in cabinet had court cases or records that were clearly against the provisions of chapter 6. He would not have appointed over 70% of those who were there. If Wetangula had bothered to read the Constitution as to how you arrive at the majority and minority, he would not have taken the majority from Azimio and taken it to KK. If both of them had bothered to read the Constitution and understood why it was necessary to have fidelity to multi-party democracy, they would have allowed the majority or the voice of the opposition on the floor of the House. If we had bothered to know why the Constitution was so heavy on issues of accountability, on issues of integrity, on issues of respecting institutions, we would not have found ourselves where we are. We would be having an IBC in place today. If they had bothered to read this Constitution, today would have dealt with the issues of boundaries, would have dealt with the issues of the boundaries. We would have dealt with the issues of boundaries delimitation, and which addresses the issues of fair allocation of resources and all those things. So when you then say that you want to talk about dialoguing on other things, every person who comes on board would have to be informed by that. And I think that is what I am reading myself, and I hear Gen Z saying. They're saying, implement the Constitution. Why do you want to form a government of national unity when the issues before us has nothing to do with a political crisis? This is not a political crisis. When Kibaki was dealing with it, he was in a political crisis, and I believe the others who were there before. Here is an issue of accountability. You put people in office, na Wakenya walisema, kweli Haji, unaweza enda kotini na wewe ndio ulistaki hao watu kwa wizi, mauaji, ubagaji, raping and all those cases. You go to court, fire and all prosecute, get them appointed to government. They come and mismanage our resources. We can see them, all that the things they are doing is buying houses, cars, watches, shoes, belts. Then the young people are here. They come up with policies, like these people in government, they come up with policies because of their inability or lack of capacity. They sit there and say, we are going to change the education system or the payment system. We have a generation that benefited from free private education in Kibaki. They came and got free education, whatever it was, 100% transition. And then all of a sudden, you change things and say,
you'll pay.
You pay. I paid, and I'm giving this an example. My last born, I paid school fees, university fees, on an annual basis of 26,000. That's the fee structure we used to receive. For the same course, a person has admitted, and they brought it to my office, the agencies. same course, they are now required to pay 316,000
per year.
per year.
It's a 4-year course.
Yeah, 4-year course, all of them. Even the 26 was still 4 years. How many, even sisi tuko hapa, wacha kwenda nje hapa, sisi ambao tunaongea na Wakenya saa hii, how many of us can just go and pay 300,000 shillings for our child? If you have 2, 600. If you have 3, 1 million. One morning. Now, look at the Kenyans who have now understood the value of education because of this free education that was introduced. It has been a government policy for 20 years to get Kenyans to know that the best thing that you can give to your child is education. And a person comes and makes the only thing that you can give to your child impossible to give. Huyu mtoto, na si mtoto, anaelewa pia, my only way to the future is going through this process. So there were in my office about 10 of them. One of these is, I finished, I'm not employed. I was a second year, I've dropped out. I have this fee structure. Fee structure, I can't pay. So what negotiation are we talking about? So what William needs to do is to just sit there and change the policies. Sasa hata hana Machogu. Again, let me tell you, when you see Machogu going to a burial in Kisii with letters, employment letter for TSC, kwa masichi anauliza nani mwingine hapa hajaajiriwa. It's okay for the people in Kisii. What about the people in Kakamega, in Turkana, where he cannot go to a burial with those letters? So when you say dialoguing about what? On what?
So what does Jubilee want?
One is that Gen Z are very clear, are saying Ruto must go. And Ruto is not Ruto the person, it is the executive.
Is it only the executive?
They go through them. They're saying Ruto must go, the executive.
Is it only the executive?
They dealt with Bunge.
Okay.
They went there themselves. They went and even sat on Wetangula's chair. They took the authority back to themselves.
The young man died.
Unfortunately, and he was shot, not one. And this is something, he was shot by sharpshooters who are within Parliament compound, some of them on top of Parliament building, the building that is supposed to be sat by people's representative. The authorities of Bunge allowed sharpshooters into their compounds to shoot the people who voted them into that office. That whole institution is condemned, starting with Weta.
So Ruto must go, also goes into Parliament must go.
It goes with the executive, it goes with the legislature.
So what?
And the question is this, is how can we then be able to achieve that? How can Gen Z achieve it? And they need to read the Constitution. I'm also reading it. You may have to work with a few bad apples for a while as you eventually do the cleaning.
So what? What is Jubilee's offer as leadership?
You know,
what are you saying? So yeah,
one of the things
those
that you have
in leadership, President, the leader of ODM, your leader in Azimio, are saying, let's find a way to accommodate one another into a conversation. Jubilee is saying no dialogue. So what do you want?
And I don't want this.
What do you propose and suggest as the next steps?
You know, one of the other things that is irritating the Gen Z ni hii maneno ya Jubilee, ODM, Wiper, nini. So I am avoiding you taking me where they don't like listening. They don't want, and for good reasons. They are saying they are tribalists, they are partyless, they are fearless, they are leaderless.
But you're not.
I'll come to there.
You're a leader of a party which has followers.
I'll get there. But I'm saying, so don't try and box me into that small corner. But and talk to me as a person who is also seeing the difficulties that we are in as a country. It does not matter whether you're in Jubilee or we are wherever, the difficulties are there. And I want to tell you what I think, what I've seen in this constitution. And you can lead, I have said, I think Article 134 all the way to 136. 136, I think all the way to 144. If I'm not getting it wrong, you can look at it from Article 136. You saw me yote ukitafuta solution up to Article 146. And my thinking is that this is a movement we should not lose. Because it's a movement of telling people who've been put into power by people, hata kama tumekuchagua, usifikirie tumekupatia the seal for life, at we can't get back to you, kwa sababu we can lead this constitution na inaonekana kama umeambiwa umalize miaka 5. This is what I wouldn't want to lose as a Kenyan. I would not want to lose this opportunity. Because if we do, then we are allowing dictatorship of 5 years. People who do not care. All that they do is ditch money huko nje, and then they get into power and mismanage you for 5 years. It cannot continue forever. And so, while we are in a very difficult situation, because we do not want to lose this country and go the Somali way, we must be courageous enough to look for a solution outside, wherever we are. And that is why I wouldn't want any of us to try and go ahead of the Gen Z. Let us support them. And I am saying this. This constitution says that in the absence of the executive, and the executive can be absent in many ways, one of which is ahead of us now is resignation. Because kama watu wamekukataa, andika barua useme nimeenda nyumbani. Watu walimkataa Kome na akaandika barua ya kuresign. So equally, William Ruto can write a letter of resignation together, and remember, they come as a package. So it is not Ruto resigning and leaving Rigathi with us. It is the both of them resigning. They should do resignation letters. What then kicks in is the constitution and says Wetangula has 90 days to organize elections for that office.
Do you see that playing out?
It is the way out.
But there are several things. You see, within those 90 days, that panel will not have been constituted, will not have selected a new IEBC, will not be ready to have an election.
This is the bit now. If you ask, if Laida is talking to William, one of the things Laida should do, if William is useful to anybody, is to say, these 4 commissioners are still available.
Which ones?
The easiest thing is to get back the 4 commissioners out. Bring them back, let them oversee that process. The commission will be there. That is a thing that will be done in a day, within a week or 2. You get back those commissioners in place. They had been vetted, whichever way vetting was done, but they were there to help us through the transition. You get Wetangula to conduct elections. Not to conduct. He holds for 90 days while the commission is doing the elections. Then after that, remember also, the Gen Z have also said the registration is also a problem. So we must agree. And the good thing about the constitution is it also says, whichever way you come in, there will have to be elections 2027 August. So you only serve for the remainder of that time and you leave.
But the Gen Z seem to have a completely different idea when
Which
it comes
is?
to legislature. They want to recall these people.
Yes, I am not saying that they keep them. But remember, if we are not vetting commissioners, you do not need bunge.
So everybody go home.
If you are not vetting commissioners, you don't need bunge. It talks of the Speaker of the National Assembly. So you will need to keep bunge for the time that they are required to come and vet the commissioners. And you remember, then you open yourself to a lot of haggling. And the vetting that is proper to me is not even bunge anymore. It is the vetting by Gen Z. But that is just one of the options that I have. And I'm sure even new people, being Kenyans, you have also ideas of how can we achieve this. But to me, that is the way we can achieve one of the ways we can achieve what Gen Z once achieved without losing this momentum of holding, including whoever is elected president in the future, accountable. Let him know that Kenyans can recall you. You can be brought back. Getting William and Rigathi to sign the resignation letters, it's nothing difficult. Kome signed his. Hata kama si Ruto alimuitisha kasign.
So basically call a snap election.
Now what Gen Z are saying, leta barua ya kwenda nyumbani.
Call a snap election.
Yes, and
say,
a snap
let's
election.
Go back to the vote.
And it is not really a snap election
because
in that
once you cause vacancy in the office of the president, You are basically saying that you need to have a snap election for a president.
I agree, but remember the definition of what we used to refer as snap elections under the old constitution is different here. So the only reason I'm not using the word snap
call
is
a fresh election.
Call for elections.
Okay.
Call for elections because we do not have a person in the office of the president and the deputy. And that's what Gen Z are saying. Hii kusema aguka nayo, si ni kusema aguka nayo. Kwani kusema nini ingine? Hii kitu imeenda. I said this in Butere, I want to repeat it. Don't confuse this thing of Ruto must go like with the dialogue. Like we confused reject finance bill with amendments.
Chiti,
Yes.
you said you think there's something else that they're saying.
You know, I do think there's something else they're saying. And it isn't one thing. They're saying generally it cannot be business as usual. Business as usual is being told what to do by the executive. No. It can't be business as usual in that the appointments happen at the whim of the president. And yet, the constitution actually does allow him to appoint.
To a point?
Cabinet.
Yep.
He's allowed. When we say we want the Gen Z to vet, I am certain that the medium by which they communicate and they go about their business, they can do that. They can actually give us an even better aggregate of these individuals, better than anybody else, because they've already shown us how they can look into the details of individuals who unsuspectingly do not know that they're actually being investigated. I am certain. So that if you have a situation where people now want to present themselves for in leadership position, they, better than Parliament, can give you a lowdown, a breakdown of what any individual who aspires to a position of authority can be. So in that respect, yes, they'd be in a very, very good position to give us those details. So you can look and say, do we really want this person to actually
Recall
work with us?
this. I think it was 2012 or 2010 or maybe 2011. 2010, most likely. When we were trying to get a person to occupy the office of the Commissioner EACC, either EACC or one of those institutions of integrity. And we had the name of a lawyer. Yes. What happened? The name was fruited and we were all in agreement because we had gone head hunting of a young person who is credible in the corridors of, court corridors within the judiciary, and a person who had made a name because of being a person who believes, and we went for a name. I will not mention the name. But in the morning, somebody came and said, you can't tell us that. This guy has been battering the wife. They have even reported the case at Mirimani. On that account alone, we dropped the name.
Yeah.
That was Gen Z of then.
Millennials.
We had been given information using the social media and said, this is what this happened 2 days ago. Walikuwa wanapigana na amepiga bibi yake. The guy went and reported and said, apana, si kumpiga, alinipiga. Then we said, already there is an issue that has a question on integrity. And we dropped that name. That was what Gen Z are saying today. The vetting can be done and it should be done by the people there because 10th Parliament, which I sat in, we tried to implement Chapter 6. The proposals that were put before Cabinet of who should qualify to occupy a public office were watered down by the Cabinet then. They came to the floor, they were further watered down. That has not been improved by all the successive parliaments that have been there. For the reason that people have interests in whatever is being done. Na wanasema unapitisha hii ikuje inikate. So that is what has informed that piece of registration for the last almost 10, maybe 15 years now.
So we're looking at a situation today.
To let me. So what I see Gen Z saying is that we now understand what Chapter 6 is saying. We can do it ourselves. Usituletee huyo, usituletee huyo, usituletee huyo. And this is a moment we should not lose as a country. If we lose it, we will be back to where we are in another 10 years.
Okay, so there's also the cry that it would appear as though those who sit in the political class, whatever level today, are also riding on this current issue with Gen Z who are making particular demands for their own political expediency. What would you have to say about that? And if that is not the case, then why did we not hear these calls before? Why did we not hear these calls in such a bullish manner before, whereby people who sat in parliament, people who surrounded political elites and political classes, why didn't we hear in such a robust manner that good governance must happen in the manner in which we're hearing it today? So it seems as if people are riding on this particular parade, as opposed to have shouted out for those calls previously.
Maybe I think if you listen clearly to quite a number of those in the political, actively involved in politics, they really don't want to ride on this.
They don't.
They actually want to query it. They want to query it because this is what needed to have happened in 2010 when we got ourselves the 2010 constitution.
This is disrupting the political order.
And again, yes, completely. You remember people came and said togeges, watu wakasema hii ni kutubeba utoto, ufara, and all those sentiments were taken for granted. To me, the culmination of all those statements is now the Gen Z movement. And why? They are seated with you in the house when you are discussing these things.
They can hear.
Wanawasikiza.
And they observe you.
And they observe you. Then they tell you, Dad, I want to go to school. See, he can't pay. He cannot afford to, he doesn't have the money. Biashara alikuwa naye ilifungwa. Imefungwa kwa nini? They can tell. Imefungwa kwa sababu ya hii uongozi baya. The things that are being done, and we keep talking about them casually kwa nyumba, then they have said, mi naenda nje sasa. Waja nijibeleke. That's what happened. I saw my whole family walinitumia picha wakiwa kwa streets. All of them. And there's nothing you can sit and tell them. And I don't understand where the church is also, and the institutions. I don't know why they are missing this. I mean, you know, it is playing around games with it.
Imeenda.
Goja kidogo du. Hawa watu, it's just the other day, William said, public officers should not go for harambes. Then he comes to Daragwa, because he thinks Kioni is making a lot of noise, and makes a pledge for harambe. Na makasisi wako pale. And they are labeting. They are actually the part of, they are allowing the same issue. Then you cannot complain when these young, and they are not young, because many of them have families. I was out in the street, I think one day, 1 or 2 days, na nika interact na hawa. Kutoka huko nyuma sio bele. They are not young people. You think they are young people. They are people who have businesses that are being corrupted by this system. They are young because they can see things differently. So when I see even bishops and the others, wakisema, we were attending another burial in Nyeri, and one of the bishops who was actively involved in campaigning for this UDA was the one presiding over. And he says, you must give peace. He says what? And then I realize, this bishop, who has almost half of Mount Kenya region and something, is saying that we must allow peace. But the young people are saying, afadhali nikufe nikitembea, kulipo nimepiga magoti. Hiyo amani unaniambia nitafute, iko maana gani? Nimekaa nyumbani, I can see what things are doing. You are mismanaging the country when you are seeing it. How do you go? What has happened, by the way, to these trips? Watu walikuwa wanatembea kila wiki. All of a sudden,
inaitwa austerity.
So if it takes the Gen Z to make us see that traveling abroad on a regular basis is not useful, you can do virtue or even use your missions, so be it. So my position is this. Let us not come in the way of Gen Z. Let them achieve what we needed to have achieved for this country more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
Let them, in any case, me I believe Mwenyezi Mungu ametupa hii nafasi ili tuweze kupiga hii hatua. If there is anything that these people have not had, let me say what I hear them saying. They are waiting for a resignation letter from William and from Gachagua. We have a 90 days period during which Wetangula will preside over as a holding president.
Some have commented here and they're saying that what you're suggesting is basically a backdoor way of the same political people taking advantage.
But
90 days to have a fresh election, it's the same monkeys that are going to be coming for the election.
Well, then of course, when elections are called, again, people must offer themselves. and Gen Z should also offer themselves for the same. Because at that point, we are trying to see what, in my thinking, is how is it that we are able to achieve what they have set to achieve without us getting the Somali way. Because when we get the Somali way, they lose, everybody loses. The whole country becomes worse than where we are. And there's no point of people people scaring us with that. There is a way out, as provided for in the Constitution. It may not have provided it that way. But idea is that if William was to write a resignation letter today, it says that if the president dies, if the deputy dies, if there is vacancy in those offices, what you do? Create those
Spice up your life.
William on dialoguing, he should be according him towards that side.
Jeremiah, thank you very much for joining us today. Jeremiah Kioni is the Secretary General of Jubilee. Are you going for this Azimio meeting? There's an Azimio meeting this morning, according to The Nation.
I don't think there is one, but because even the other night there was said that there will be a meeting, there was none. But I know we are having, of course, people will have to continue sitting and asking themselves, what is it? Like what I've said now. Somebody may ask me, what is it you are saying? Can you tell us more? Which parts of the Constitution do you think we are reading?
Okay.
And when also we are holding different positions in Azimio, as it appears to be, what is it that, what does it mean, and all these things. But it is important to know that a solution to me is available in the Constitution.
Asante. Kioni is the SG of Jubilee. He was a member of the 12th Parliament and chair of the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee, among other things.
And also 10th Parliament.
And the 10th Parliament.
I was
and a running mate in 2013.
Yes, on Musaria, and I was also part of the 27 people who sat to do the Constitution at Naivasha.
Bas.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.